Board of County Commission now back in session. Next on the agenda will be Mr. Fonda Davis.
Good morning, Commissioners. I apologize for running a little late. I was over at the landfill taking care of some landfill matters this morning. I really have nothing to report other than Mr. Morone was going to bring something while I was here. So,
Okay, go ahead.
If you would, Commissioners, item 3 on my report, we're going through my report, by will or by force, huh? During your budget workshop, the board discussed adding an additional part-time animal control officer to the county's animal control department due to increased calls and for seven-day-a-week coverage. During that discussion, it was stated that both the city of Carabel and the city of Apalachicola should contribute to the animal control budget, since the county's animal control officers respond to many complaints within both city limits and therefore spend a lot of time there. The board requested, that I contact both cities and ask that they consider contributing $7,000 each if they wanted the county's animal control officers to continue responding to calls within the city limits. This would offset some of the added expense of the new part-time position. The board also wanted a formal agreement that would include language requiring city officers to respond with the animal control officer to assist with some of the human conflicts that go along with these calls. After having these discussions with representatives from both cities, and keeping in mind, Commissioners, that they're also in the middle of their budget process, would the board consider another option? Each city would contribute $3,500 for this budget year, and then agree to contribute the $7,000 for the 2020-2021 budget year. In addition, all animal complaints called would go to the sheriff's dispatch. Then a local city police officer would respond and determine if an animal control officer is actually needed. That process might reduce the amount of calls that require an animal control officer. There would be a source to determine how many calls are from each city versus unincorporated areas of the county for future discussions. And a law enforcement officer would be at the call location to address, once again, any human conflict. I've discussed this matter with Mr. Fonda Davis, and he supports the idea.
Pleasure to board.
Mr. Chairman? Michael, we received different emails, and what I understood is they didn't want an officer to respond to this stuff. Now, we had some issues in the city of Appalachia a while back, and the same thing happened. People cussing out our animal control officers, threatening our animal control officers, and they don't carry a gun or a bat, which is why we requested that an officer respond with the animal control officer within the cities of Carabel and Apalachicola. What is the response from the two cities on that issue?
The staff I talked to said they liked that idea. Their police officers were a little resistant too, and I was like, look, sometimes, like you said, the human conflict is worse than having to deal with the animals.
Well, people love their dogs now, don't
Yes.
get me wrong. And their dog don't never get out, but if their dog gets out and causes trouble, then it causes trouble with animal control officers. And they're not there to arrest anybody or anything.
right.
They don't have that power.
That's right.
So they're subject to verbal abuse and all these other things, is why I think an officer needs to respond.
Yep.
So I wanna make sure that the two cities are willing to do that.
Okay.
And you're stating here that you've talked to them and they are willing to do that?
Yeah, if the board agrees, I'll just tell them this is the way it's gonna be. I mean,
If not, these guys can't go out there and put themselves.
exactly.
They could be shot or injured, fights. I mean, all kinds of different stuff goes on, but they're not authorized to do anything about it.
That's right. I mean,
Only a duly authorized police officer, and in the unincorporated areas would be a sheriff's deputy to respond to help prevent some of these human conflicts and the verbal abuses that our officers take.
I would prefer, Commissioner, that the law enforcement officer is there first, and then call our animal
Which is what
control.
you state here.
That's what I'm stating here.
Yeah.
So that's the way I would ask, if you guys direct, I'd ask, for Attorney Schuler to write up the memorandum in that manner. I mean, if they wanna keep using our officers, this is our terms. This is how we're gonna do it. That's how I
Well, how do
feel.
we, I mean, I don't have no problem making a motion to proceed, but I wanna make sure that everybody's aware of what their responsibilities are, as well as our animal control officers' responsibilities are in both the cities.
What they need. Not on all calls, they don't need them, but some of them calls, like you said, people love the animals and they get crazy. You have two people there, You be talking to one and you be put the animal in the cage, other than going taking him out,
Right.
all stuff like that. Then you said something, they wanna.
They ready to fight.
They ready to fight, our office, what we sent out there. And all he doing is his job. But they dog ain't never wrong.
They talking about dogs just running down the road, you know. They shouldn't have to go to that, just one running down the road.
Mr. Chairman, you know, this is also a model, there is also a model for dual response in other areas. So for instance, we would have the ambulance service backed up by the fire engine, fire department, and they both go to the scene at the same time. Here's an opportunity for dual response too, with an animal control officer and a sheriff deputy. And I think it improves our sales pitch, if you will, to the cities, that we're giving them some amendment and value added to the money they're spending, while that we're able to deploy a deputy as well.
Well, let me be clear, Commissioner. I'm asking that if it's within the city police officers respond.
Oh,
If
I
it's-
see.
If it's in unincorporated areas, then the deputies would respond. That's.
Well, do we have that authority to ask the city to do that?
Not so, well, we could, and if, I guess my pitch to them is, if they want our animal control officers to continue to respond within the city limits, these are the terms. This is how it's gonna be done. So that's why I'm asking this board to set the terms for me to reach out to them and enforce. That's what I'm saying. So, I don't want to give a misleading statement that it's gonna be added value. We're saying to continue the level of service that we provide. This is how we're gonna do it.
All you're doing is trying to keep a situation from going bad, right?
Right.
That's
Yeah.
the bottom line.
Yes, sir.
I mean, it ain't, some of them be fussing before they get, when they see the truck turn the corner, they go to raise and sing.
Yeah.
Some of them do, all of them don't.
And by going through dispatch, the sheriff's dispatch, Fawn and I discussed, the board will now have a way to look at the calls, and you'll have data to look at and see how many calls actually come from within the cities and how many calls comes from the unincorporated area. So that's one of our main purposes, from, even if his animal controls officers get the calls first, he's gonna ask his officers to go ahead and run it through dispatch. We need a database to show, so I can come back to you guys before we do next year's budget to say, hey, this is what it looks like on paper, here's what's going on. You guys can make a decision then.
I'm gonna make a motion based on your recommendation here, with stipulation that if there's any changes to this, the matter should come back to this board.
Yes, sir.
So if you got to change what you got here, and I wanna know about it before this policy is put in place.
Okay.
Now, if everybody agrees and everybody's good with the policy, then move on. But if the terms of this policy change, I want this board to know about it before you proceed. And I'll make that motion.
I got
I
a
would
motion on
second
the
it.
floor by Commissioner Parrish, second by Commissioner Burt. Right now, if the animals got control of the town, I mean, it's okay, I ain't against nobody having an animal, but they should, keep them in their place. You ain't got no business in other people's yard, running them out their yard and everything else. You can't come out the house, and the dog guarding and barking at you like that. That's wrong. Then when you tell the owner, my dog didn't do that, they in the bed asleep. Y'all ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That passed unanimous.
That's it?
That's it. Okay. Keep up the good work.
Okay, thank y'all.
And that was 3,500 each per city this budget year or upcoming, current?
Okay, next on the agenda will be Ms. Amy Kelly, public hearing.
We done did Eric Love.
Yeah. This the Simmons public hearing, right?
Sir?
This for the Simmons. right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
This morning, we have a public hearing for Shell Bay rezonings. It's the Simmons project. It's a consideration of a request to rezone a 22.77 plus or minus acre parcel of land lying in Section 35, Township 7 South, Range 5 West, Carabel, Franklin County, Florida. Request submitted by Garlic Environmental Associates, agent for William Simmons, applicant. This morning, they want to go from R1 Single Family Residential, which allows 1 unit per acre, to R1A, which is Single Family Subdivision, which allows 3 units per acre. Some of the requirements of that is that you have to have a centralized water and sewer system for those lots in order to reduce those lots to 1/3 acre lots. The south portion of the property is in a coastal high hazard area, but since they're not increasing the density of that property, they are allowed to include that into the request.
So you're saying that, Mr. Chairman,
Good.
so you're saying the lots on the south side of 98, they will not be utilizing in the subdivision as far as residents go?
They will.
Oh, they will?
But there's a reduction in units. They're not increasing the number of units.
So what are you trying to say there?
That means, they could have, I believe it's 6 units down there, but they're not going to have 6 units. If they're gonna reduce the number of units that they can put there.
To
on the-
what?
2.
2 units on the
And a
south
swimming
side?
pool. Yes, sir.
Okay, that's
Yes, sir.
where I was looking
Well,
for.
they've-
More explanation there.
Okay.
So moved.
Wait a minute, this is a public hearing.
Hang on.
This is a public,
Oh.
we got to call for public. You want to talk?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Dan Garlic for Shell Bay 3D. Yeah, I'm here to answer any questions that you might have. But basically what we're trying to do is, some of you have been here before for this. It used to be, some called it the Great Wall of Carabel. Big seawall that's going along there in the general area. And it's a subdivision that was pretty much R1, large lots, septic tanks, and wells. And on the south side, as Amy mentioned, there's 6 platted lots. They'd been there, and they're basically, they could be, if they were big enough, you could build houses in each one of those with a dock, because they're riparian. Some of those are greatly affected by the 50-foot setback, and so we went back to the drawing board and tried to figure out just what can we do with this property. Just to give you a little background on this thing, this, speaking of flat ground, this is not flat ground. It slopes pretty good. It gets higher and higher as you go towards Tate's Hill, and it's really good sandy permeable soil. And so it'd be fine for septic tanks, some areas where we could meet that, and, meet all the conventional things in an R1 district. We looked at this site here, and we were trying to figure out how this is something that we could make more affordable. I have Mr. Simmons here, and he'll explain a little bit more about that a little later on if you'd like to hear it. But basically what we're looking at is trying to concentrate units more in the higher ground in an X zone versus having any possibility of having any kind of development down towards the A zone or even in the V zone, which is on the south side of US 98. So the idea, just like Amy mentioned, that area is in a coastal high hazard area. We looked at it, instead of doing those 6 units or anything like it, we proposed to take 2 of those lots and replat those to have at least about 0.4 acres per lot for 2. The rest we'll just combine into 1, and what we'd like to do is do like a swimming pool that would be an amenity for the lots across the street. The lots across the street with the R1 zoning would allow us to have units up to 1 unit per 1/3 acre. We plan to do 34 on the north side, but out of that, 4 of those are going to remain to be about 1 acre or 3/4 an acre. Those are the ones that are right next to US 98, and part of those are in A zone, so we're even trying to eliminate any kind of development even in that A zone area on the north side. So the idea is to just take our development and push it to the north in areas that are more well-drained and out of harm's way. How do we get to that point without, water and sewer? What we propose to do is do the water and sewer as opposed to do wastewater systems, septic tanks, individual systems. Just eliminate that totally. And go with this central collection system for water and sewer. That's gonna go up into the northern part that also is an X zone, so it's out of harm's way again. Just my brief conversations with the DEP and the Water Management District, we have plenty of good water and we have plenty of good area to build a wastewater system that can not only satisfy and service the lots that we're talking about now, including the ones on the south side of US 98, but we even have more capacity to offer into the neighborhood as well. So if people have issues with water and sewer now, then they could actually connect into the system here. So we've got kind of a mini collection system for this general area. I doubt if you're gonna see water and sewer being offered by Carabel anywhere in the near future, maybe not any at all. So the idea of these guys coming forward and doing this, I think is reasonable to do versus having their own septic tanks and wells. So I think that's a big benefit there. So one is you're eliminating more impacts in the V zone. You're attempting to eliminate or minimize the impact in the A zone and concentrate the development in the X zone, where is a good place to be. So that's the beauty of what we're trying to do here. We've got, we looked at some other things, we looked at RVs, we looked at other things, but this seemed to be a reasonable use of the property. Access to US 98, we think is still, it's not gonna be any different than what it was before. There's two exits on the north side, that's all we're still gonna use. All the roads in here would be paved, that would enter US 98. On the south side, we should have only one access that we can use for both of the lots, but also that area that'd be on the west side, which is gonna be an amenity. Amenities consistent of basically a pool. So I think that you're seeing a big benefit by doing this, rezoning in that regard. They get some more lots, but you also get an area that's getting out of the high hazard area. I think that's really a reasonable reason to do the rezoning. I believe this is gonna be a quasi judicial hearing. Mr. Schuler?
I'm listening, yes.
Okay.
I'm waiting for the question.
Oh, this will be a quasi judicial hearing
Yes, I'm looking at
for rezoning?
this is the public hearing, so yes.
Right, okay. Just want to make that point. Okay. Any questions? I got Mr. Simmons here, and he can talk to you about what he'd like to do with the lots and also his efforts of looking at, and talking to people in the neighborhood to see if we really had, some type of a consensus, opinions, whatever. And why don't you just let him speak for a minute, and then you can ask me any other questions that you like.
Hang on before you, Mr. Chair, may I ask a couple of questions?
Go ahead.
The extended yellow rectangular parcel south of 98 extending out into the water, what is that?
That's just coming off the tax appraiser's map.
Okay.
Yeah, it's water, for the most part.
Okay. I'm sorry?
It would have been reserved for a dock when it was drawn.
Okay, that's what I was driving at. I think that's where the original dock was proposed for the original development years ago. And what I wanted to get on the record for the board is what I mentioned to you when you authorized a public hearing, which is back during the original development of this subdivision, one of the issues was how many boat slips can they have for the subdivision, and the board's policy is that they have 6 lots that have riparian rights south of 98. They get 2 boat slips per lot for a total of 12. The issue back then was the developer was trying to get boat slips for the non-riparian lots on the north side of 98. And so that is a very long build-up to ask, how many boat slips do you intend for this potential development? You've gone through other development aspects that y'all want as part of this rezone, so I thought it was fair to ask how many boat slips that you're envisioning for this proposed subdivision.
Yeah, we haven't even got to that point. We've talked about a courtesy dock of sorts that one could go out there and fish off or whatever. I would think that once this was rezoned or replatted to 3 lots, then we could only have 6 boat slips, so that would cut it in half of what we were allowed to do the first time. Is that fair?
I would prefer 12.
Anyway,
Well,
that's,
the number of boat slips really is not necessarily relevant to the board making a decision to approve or disapprove the rezoning. That actually is a site plan matter, but it was such a contentious, if you will, discussion during the original development. I wanted to get this groundwork laid with the board and the public and the developer and his consultant now, because if that's an issue that we need to address going on in the future, I would just want that conversation to be held up front.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
I thought they were redoing the 6 lots on the south side of Highway 98. Now they're only gonna have 2 buildable lots. Is that correct?
That, I've heard a discussion, they're going to go from 6 to 3, but they actually
6
haven't
to 3?
submitted a site
Yeah.
plan to reduce the density yet. So, as we're looking at it today, they have 6 parcels of record, which means whether they're buildable or not is not necessarily relevant to the issue of the number of boat slips. The board's policy is 2 boat slips per lot that has riparian rights. So right now, they have 6, and if they reduce that, they may have fewer. But as we look at it today, they have 6 lots, which would be 6 units times 2 boat slips, total of 12.
But today, we are proposing to go to 3 lots.
So
And one more question, Mr. Chairman. You're saying you're gonna build your own advanced wastewater treatment plant there?
Yes,
Because that was another question of mine, is I know you don't have water and sewer there. In order to get A1A, you gotta have, water and sewer.
yes.
So you're gonna build your own plant there.
Can we show the,
The plat?
can we show the plat? Yeah, that would have it on there.
I don't have the plat on here.
Oh, I'm sorry, that would be for the conceptual site plan approval, wouldn't it be? Do you have that on there?
I do have.
I've got a large map here if you'd like to see it.
You have it with you right there?
Yeah.
I have it in here.
how many total units are proposed?
Total would be 34. Most of them, everything, you know, the 3 on the south and the rest of them are.
We're going to do a package plant for 34 lots.
Yeah, we do.
Wow. Technology has sure improved and brought the price down, I guess.
Hasn't brought the price down.
Can I approach the board with this?
That was tongue in cheek.
Come on.
Plan is to build the infrastructure.
All right. So this is US 98. This is the south side, of course, and there were 6, there's 6 there now. What we're doing is putting 2 here and also making this into an amenity area, so those go away. This line here is the 50-foot setback. We will do nothing that will be in the critical habitat zone or the 25-foot setback, so all that's represented. North side of the road, you've got these lots laid out. And this is the A zone line. The X zone is.
This is the public hearing. If anybody wants to come up and watch this whole presentation, feel free, come up, due process as best. You can start over.
You wanna turn it around so they can see?
Well, then we can't
I'll
see
hold
that.
I mean, sideways.
Bring him the microphone.
Bring it sideways and everybody can look at it. I'm just a little unsteady.
Okay, I'm gonna start over on this. Okay, I'm looking at the proposed plat for the rezoning from R1 to R1A. So what you have here is US 98 runs through the property. South side is the area where there's 6 platted lots that Mr. Shu and I were just talking about. Now we're showing that south side is being replatted to 2 lots. In one area that would be an amenity area with a swimming pool and something like that, that all meets the 50-foot setbacks and the 25-foot setbacks. North side of the road is where we're showing 1/3 acre lots. They're all in X zone. Here's the A zone right here. So what we're doing is looking at everything north of there that's less than 1/3 of an acre is in the X zone. In the A zone, there are 4 lots, but the houses will actually be built in the X zone area. But we're going ahead and creating the lots that go on all the way down there, so there won't be any way of getting a house there in the future. Access is the one that's out there now. There's another one that's out there that's a paved road that will allow access to 2 of these. Over in this corner is a wetland area that is connected by a culvert under the road. So it also needs to meet the 50-foot setback, which is this area right in here, the critical habitat zone. So anything from this point forward will not be touched. Up in here, again, you see where the X zone runs through. This is where we plan to put the wastewater treatment system, up in this corner. Over in the other end is our well. We got plenty of room between that because of the cone influence that DP and the Water Management District require. So as far as pollution goes, we'll be in good shape there. This system here is large enough that will service this, but again, we have some surplus. We don't know what it is yet, but we've been asking the neighbors whether or not they would like to hook up on the same system, and we've had some positive, others are just indifferent, but we've made that effort to talk to everybody. So basically, all these are paved roads, and it meets, we meet all the provisions of the R1A rezoning category, so we've done that. And of course, here, this wall is in place, it's been there since 2000, where's Keith? 2005.
And you're gonna reach out across the street and provide sewer and water connection as well?
Down here? Yeah.
Down there.
Yeah, we'll have to get an easement from DOT, but we plan to do a sewer connection to attach, sewer and water to
To your
attach these as
system
well.
up in the corner.
The idea is not to have any wastewater, individual wastewater systems on this site. The idea is to have it all collected and out of harm's way more than we can.
Okay, now, if this rezone is granted, you only got 3 lots here. You don't
Correct.
have 6.
Correct.
I wanna make that clear.
Yes,
Yeah.
2 buildable lots, and then there's a common area for
Because
folks.
right now you have 6, but if we rezone
That's
this,
right.
you will not have a 3, which
That's
will
right.
allow you 6 votes.
No, 2 per, yeah, 6, you're right.
Because you ain't got the 3.
Correct.
I mean, I wanna make that clear.
Scandinavian math is not gonna work here. 3 times 2 is
No,
6.
six is correct. Six,
I mean-
6 boat slips altogether. If we do that on down the road, we don't even know what we're gonna do, but that would be the maximum.
But if you do,
allowed.
that's what, I want everybody to understand that, and I want the board to understand that.
Is that what you're saying? That there will only be 6 granted?
That's correct. Because you're rezoning it now, you don't have 6 lots down here, you're going to only have 3.
Yeah.
I mean, I want
I'm just,
everybody,
just making sure that we're all saying the same thing.
me too, me too.
Well, right now,
Me too.
we're only talking about the rezoning.
That's right.
You haven't replatted anything.
Right. This-
So
That's right.
if
Well,
you
we-
get the rezone and you do not install your package plant, you have 0 buildable
That's right.
lots because you
Right.
can't provide the infrastructure.
Right.
Yeah.
And you would either have to
Understood.
come back and seek another rezoning, a downzoning to less density. In terms of the lots across the road, right now, you have 6 lots of record until that is changed officially by this county commission with a replat.
Correct.
Okay?
All
Can I
right.
ask a question, please?
Sure.
Wait,
I'm a little
Let back up.
confused
Sir,
about.
Let
if
back
we're,
up now.
if we're finished with the
gotta wait for public
presentation, we'll get everybody back and you can come ask your questions at that point.
Well, the only reason that I wanted to is while we got the plans up here, like.
I know, but we can't, I don't know that if everyone will come to the microphone and state their name for the record and ask the question, that would be one thing. But I don't think the public can hear you back there. The
Okay.
board can hear you, but if you wanna come around to the mic, that's fine.
Let back up and then we'll,
Okay.
we can bring the mic back out if need be.
Any more questions about this?
There will be when you get public comment.
He can hold it up, or, yeah, stick it up on there.
Mr. Chairman, where you are procedurally is the applicant is still making his presentation. The board will then ask questions of the applicant, and then we'll open it up for public comment.
And we're sort of showing our cards now. I mean, the rezoning is one thing, but we were trying to show you what we're trying to do with that rezoning. And that's why I like to have Mr. Simmons just talk for a minute, so he can share what he's trying to do.
Give
on
me
the
some
site.
of that. Hey,
Okay.
no, I wanted all that now. You can be done. Go ahead, give me your name for the record, sir.
William Simmons.
Why don't you explain the types of houses that
Ah.
you're doing, the work that you did about the neighborhood?
Right. I canvassed as many of the neighbors as I could find home. There were 9 adjacent sites. The first one being right here on 98. He has 2 half-acre lots. He was happy to tie into our water and sewer system. Other folks around here, of the 9 folks, I found 5 at home, and they just were ambivalent. They didn't care whether I did it or not. The other folks, I left letters, and I haven't heard back from them, so I'm guessing I will hear today. We're gonna leave these first 4 lots across the front as Tier 1 lots. They're all 1 acre lots, which forces us into about the 400 price range, and that's, oh, thank you. This is actually 4 lots across the front here, and a 5th lot over here. These will all be at least 1 acre lots. That one's probably gonna remain a 3 acre lot, and they will be in the 400 range. But back in the back, We want to divide this up into what comes out to about 2 houses per acre and sell them starting in the 200s. So, and everybody up here has a good water view, but we thought by reducing the price back here that, you know, some of the local folks could afford to move in there if they wanted to. That was our thinking in increasing the density. We don't want to have to sell every house in there for $400,000.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Simmons, I'm reminded of my colleague here on the dais recommending this. We just recently looked at this Serenity development over here in East Point
Yes.
and looked at that. Would it be appropriate, and would you consider an amount to be determined that the proceeds of sale from every one of your lots, a piece of that proceeds, goes into what I'm saying is a savings account for affordable housing, and contingent upon us considering the zoning here? Would that be appropriate?
I felt like I was building the affordable houses back here,
Where, sir?
in the back.
Well, I'm thinking, the spirit of that is a contingency fund for affordable housing somewhere in the county-wide area.
How much are we talking about?
I'm saying the proceeds from the sale of each piece of parcel be divided and designated for affordable housing.
Is that like 1,000 per house
Oh,
or
I think that's a
5,000 per house?
determination that you would make. And we have a guide already, I think, in the Serenity development, don't we?
Do you remember that figure?
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I could.
What are you thinking?
The issue of affordable housing, of course, is very important throughout the county. It's important throughout the state, in fact, the entire country. Right now, we're here on the limited issue of whether or not to rezone the property, not a site plan or a development plan. So my recommendation would be that you not give any consideration, although it's a very meritorious concept. Now would probably not be the time to consider that, Commissioner Bolt. Respectfully, I think it's something we should look at and maybe discuss.
Not opposed to the idea.
With the landowner, and see if we can come to a voluntary arrangement as we did with the prior developer when they get to a site plan. Right now,
I see.
he's talked concepts. We don't have anything concrete from him, but we will in the future, and we can certainly have that voluntary conversation at that future time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Bolt.
Continue, sir.
Do you
I
have
was
any
pretty
further
much,
presentation?
I was pretty much at the end of mine. I'm not opposed to that concept that you were bringing up.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. But bear in mind, it is voluntary.
Yes, I got it.
We ain't got that for you yet.
Any more presentation from your side, Mr. Garlick, on behalf of the developer?
Any more questions, I'm happy to deal with the technical aspects. I will tell you that as we go through this thing, we still have permits that we need to get from the Water Management District for stormwater management. We still need to get permits for the well, and we still need to get permits for the wastewater system. We feel comfortable we can do all those things. This is where we wanted to start.
Mr. Chairman, during your last public hearing we had with Serenity, as Commissioner Bolt mentioned, there were so many people. There was actually basically a party representative who was allotted a time period for presentation. From what I saw, there doesn't seem to be as many people here today. So if you, with your permission, Commissioner, Chairman Lockley, I would suggest that we allow those individuals 3 minutes to ask what questions they would like of the developer. And I would give the respectful request that if someone has already asked your question, don't ask it a second time. I mean, if there's some variation, then that would be fine. But if that's okay with you, Mr. Chairman, I would say we would ask first.
That'll be fine. Just
All right.
bring 'em on up.
All right, you got, Mike, you got, where'd my timekeeper go?
All right.
I don't have my
yes.
phone with me.
I don't
If the first person would come to the podium, you have 3 minutes. You can make a presentation. You can also ask some questions of the developer if you have any questions.
Public hearing at that time. Public, it's time for you to speak.
I've just got a couple questions.
Give me
Number
your name
one-
for your record, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry, my name's Charles Carruthers. I live at 229 Woodle. I'm concerned about this waste treatment plant about the smell, because I know what the smell's like on St. George Island at that water thing. The second thing I was concerned with was access to 98. Now, on that plan, they were showing a second drive out, but I don't know where it is. Judy Taylor lives there on the side of that, and then another homeowner lives next to it, but I don't know other than one way in, because I drove back there yesterday. It circles in and circles back. It's not shown on that plan. The other thing I'm concerned about is they're showing some very small plots for mobile homes or trailers, whatever you want to call that. And my limited experience has been that you start putting mobile homes or whatever you call it on property, values go down. And you start getting a certain type of clientele in there. So I'm opposed to the small lots. I think it should be for homes. It increases the value of my property. And that's all I got to say.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Chairman,
Yes.
if this is rezoned to R1A, the only allowable use is stick-built houses, modular homes. No mobile homes will be allowed.
Okay.
Is there any other public comment? Or questions of the developer? You also have that right.
Within 3 minutes, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to talk fast because I got a lot to say. Good morning. My name is Susan Mackin, and I currently live at 2171 Highway 98 West with the Carabel, Florida address. Chairman Lockley, Commissioners, I appreciate the opportunity to share my concerns today. After living and working in Apalachicola, my partner and I, Jorge, bought our current home about 1.5 years ago in April of 2018. And I know we're just a tiny little box on these maps, these county maps, but let's see if I can figure out how to use this thing.
It's the center button.
Okay. There we are, right there. That little fish hook looking thing, which is appropriate since we make our living on the water. So, I've got a few procedural concerns that I'd like to share with you before I let it get personal. I can't help but it be personal because it's literally right in my backyard. Although a link to the July 9th Planning and Building Committee agenda was posted on the county's website, unfortunately, I was unable to click on it and open it, even after I tried over multiple days on multiple computers. The rezoning signage that was posted at the Shell Bay property, it appeared, it disappeared, and then it showed back up last Tuesday or Wednesday. I don't know how that happened. There wasn't a storm that could have blown it over, but that's what happened. So the notice was there and went away and came back. And lastly, I believe the map at the bottom of the notice of zoning change has an error. See if I can find it here in my stack of stuff. Well, here's what came in the mail. It appears to include a lot that actually is not a portion of Shell Bay. The tax records indicate that that property, that 1 acre, is owned by an Oliver Thomas partnership out of Cairo, Georgia. And then I've got a question about one of the lots within the Shell Bay area that shows again on the tax maps as being sold in April of last year, I believe it was. It's a 1 acre lot that was sold to Jones is the last name, but somehow now it's showing up in this rezoning application. I would think that the owners of that property would have to make application to rezone. So those are some questions that I have. Current zoning is 1 acre per lot, when in fact many of us have homes that sit on more than an acre a lot. Our lot is 1.5 acres. Y'all's is larger, the Boone's is larger, so we've got 3 parcels that adjoin Shell Bay with owner-occupied homes, all of whom are on more than 1 acre of land. I share the same concerns that you just voiced with them. So I guess I'm literally here to say, please, not in my backyard. Our house sits on the back side of our property. Those are the X zones, those are the small lots. So we called ourselves doing our homework before we made a move to make an offer and have a contract drawn up. And our purchase of this home represents years of hard work and savings. So we knew that we were looking at maybe 4 houses stuck back up behind us on acre lots. Now, what we're gonna be looking at, when I walk out of my back door, we're gonna be looking at a street that's lined with 11 homes by my count from the preliminary plat map that was submitted. I think any of you, if you lived where I lived, would share some of these same concerns. Mr. Schuler brought up the issue with the boat slips and the history of that. I will add that, you know, Mr. Simmons, you did deliver a letter to my house. It was not my gardener that you left it with. It was my significant other that was downstairs doing yard work. Your letter references a fishing pier, community boat docks and dockage for jet skis and boats of various sizes, and all of that would be on the south side of the development. So, you know, I share the usual concerns: noise, light pollution, appropriate stormwater management, particularly that close to the bay. Tripling the density of the property triples the permitted impermeable surfaces on that acreage of land that sits right there, most of which is across the highway from Appalachia Bay. Again, thank you for allowing me to express my concerns. Thank you.
Thank
Did you get everything out that you wanted to?
More or less. Just talk
If you have
fast
more, go
enough.
right ahead.
Could I have 1 minute more?
No.
Just one moment. Did you have anything else to add, ma'am?
I think I've covered it, Mr. Schuler. I talked fast.
Very good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. No, so not right now. Let someone else have a turn right now.
Fine.
Good morning. I'm Keith Hardy, here representing my brothers and I who actually own the property next to the proposed subdivision. I have copies of my statement as well as attachments which show where our property lies next to this property, and the handout that was that I found in the door. I think I'll just be clear and read this into the record. The comments are by Keith Hardy, representing the principals of Ralph and Catherine Hardy Trust. That includes my brother Gene, Brian, if you walk into the courthouse, the guy wearing the cowboy hat, and Greg Hardy. To come to the point, we oppose the rezoning due to the increased density, the potential environmental and economic impact of a breach of the sewer system, and the intended use of the Shell Bay property on the south side of Highway 98. The R1A zoning on the north side of 98 is desirable in that it eliminates the possibility of additional mobile homes, which have a negative impact on surrounding property values and are more susceptible to damage in extreme weather events. But increasing the density beyond R1 is inconsistent with the surrounding properties. Number 2, though a sewage system is potentially environmentally safer than individual septic systems, the proposed location of the system would negatively impact the Hardy property on the north and south sides of Highway 98 in the event of a failure. For example, a breach in the system due to a storm or operational failure. As demonstrated in Mexico Beach, an event such as Hurricane Michael can destroy everything within a quarter to 1/2 mile of the coastline. And the only stormwater drainage from the Shell Bay property is one culvert under Highway 98 that was referenced earlier and is shown on the plat map that exit directly on the Hardy property, and that is shown attached. Number 3, the property south of Highway 98 should remain R1, single-family residential. The intended use as a common area, as stated in the attached undated letter by Ed Simmons, the managing partner of FLA3D LLC, is out of character with the waterfront residential zoning along Highway 98. The letter states, and I quote, and you have a copy, phases of the development will build out a fishing pier, boat/jet ski dockage, and various sized community boat slips. Phased in will be a clubhouse pavilion and meeting room on the water for events. The intended use appears to have the functionality of a marina and a party house, similar to a commercial marina for Shell Bay residents. There is no other waterfront common area such as this along Highway 98. And I'm saying all the way from Alligator Point to Apalachicola. And it would be adjacent to single-family residential. So in summary, we urge the board to reject the proposal for rezoning.
Mr. Hardy, did you have any questions of the applicant and the developer?
I think I heard what they intended to do, although I do see a noted difference between the stated intent and the distraction to number of boat slips from the actual higher density and the use of this property in an unusual way. I guess normally rezoning is done by, for some reason, some pressure to do it. And I don't see any surrounding property that makes this the obvious target of rezoning.
Yes, sir. Well, I just wanted you to know, you had the right to ask questions of them if you choose to, or you can make your presentation to the board. Either one's fine.
Sure. I think you have.
Thank you very much. All right. Is there, uh-oh, I did something. Any other public comment? Any other public comment? Yes.
Uta Hardy, 67 Avenue G in Apalachicola. The only thing I would like to add is a question to my husband's presentation. I think the biggest concern at this point is the sewer system and a malfunction of the sewer system, which, and he didn't point it out, you can see on the water side of Highway 98, you can see the large property, and on the east of, let me try to do this. I'm not good at this.
It's the center button at the top.
On the top? Oh, I'm really not good. I'm sorry.
Or if you need to be technical, we're all in trouble.
Ah, good, see? Thank you very much, so. Okay, here I'm, so the Hardy property is this area here and there. So basically, completely enclosing the planned rezoned area. And the sewer system is supposed to be right up from there. So I'm really, really concerned. And the question I have is, would you consider positioning the system on a different location?
Any other public comment?
Michael Crail, citizen here in Franklin County. I'm just curious, what type of system is this going in? A vacuum system? How will this system function? You got lots on the lower area. You're going to get effluent to a higher area. What is the system? What type of sewer system is going in?
Okay, I guess I'll
Just answer that question
Okay.
first.
The question that is that we're going to use this series, it's going to be advanced wastewater treatment system. So it's better than an aerobic unit. You know what because you've got one on the island, right?
Vacuum or gravity?
It'll be both. Because what we're gonna have to do, yes, we have to use, in some areas, we're gonna have to use lift stations to get it from the individuals to there, but it'll all be in a collection system that go to a central location. That central location will be an advanced wastewater treatment system.
So for instance, on the left side, this picture here, which would be the west side, let's say that's the high
Mike.
side.
Sir,
and gravity
Mike.
flow.
Sir, you have to come to the podium.
You have to come back to it.
I
They can't
apologize.
pick that up on the record.
I apologize. On the left side of the picture here, which would be the west side of the properties, let's say that's the high side, things are gonna gravity flow into the low area where your system treatment plant is, next to that big lot that's all wetland, they said. And essentially that's, but you're gonna vacuum then from the beach to the system? No?
Lift stations.
All right.
Lift stations.
So,
Okay.
the assortment of things. Okay.
Yeah, so the lift stations on the south side will convey sewage uphill to that area in that northwest corner. Our wastewater system is not in the wetlands. It's not, it isn't even, it's at least 75 feet away from the wetlands because that's what you need for, at least for an aerobic unit. So we're in a position to maintain that whole area. That includes the drain fields, everything. It's gonna be at least 75 feet away, if not more. To answer Ms. Hardy's question, it's a consideration. We could take it and go from the other end, and move the well to the other side. It's possible, but then you're gonna have a system, and as far as the smell goes, I think it's probably not reasonable to compare the system on St. George Island that's been there for 35 years and has been beat up over and over again, and that is not an advanced wastewater treatment system. So I don't know what the smell is like, but you're not gonna have that same kind of situation here. It's not gonna be any worse and probably a whole lot better than what you'd be around aerobic units. So the consideration going the other side is something we can consider. I know we're still in the rezoning part, but like I say, we're showing our cards now, just so you've got confidence in what we can do with this property. So the idea of shifting the water to the other side and the wastewater to the other side is a consideration we can certainly think about.
You'll have a chance to rebut in just
Okay.
a moment. Any other questions, Mr. Creel?
Yes, sir, but it's not coming out of me right now, so just see it. Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So spray field, will there be any spray field activities? No, nothing like that happening. That sounds like a good system to me. Thank you.
All right. Does that conclude your questions?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, Mr. Hardy?
Just one quick follow-up.
Okay, that's fine, but let me get something on the
Oh,
record
sure,
first.
sure.
No, stay right there. Mr. Chairman, I know typically this is not the procedure we would follow, but there's just so few people here, it's not like we've got a room full of people that want to speak. So typically, you would not be allowed to get back up and ask
I
those.
understand.
But you will in this case, along with Mr. Carruthers. But if you would be
This-
succinct.
It's just a clarification. I think it is clear that the only downhill property from this septic system is the wetland and the Hardy property. And there is only one drainage for the whole subdivision to the Gulf side through that one culvert that dumps onto our property. So it does create more of a risk for someone who's not in the subdivision, more risk than the people who are. Just to clarify, that's a very simple drainage situation there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hardy. Mr. Carruthers, you had an additional question?
Well, not a question, actually.
Okay.
See if I can get this thing to work.
Top center button.
There you go. Well, I just want to point out that I own approximately right here, back, over to here, and over to there. I have 5 acres there. And I'm very concerned with the subdivision backing up against me with mobile homes.
Yes, sir. Well, you heard county staff say that the zoning code, if this rezoning occurs, will not allow mobile homes, modular homes, which we don't legally have the ability, according to state law, to tell people they have to have a site-built home. We have to consider a modular home as if it is site-built. All right, is there any other public comment or questions of the applicant?
I have one quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
It is a question, not a comment.
Question for the board
Fire
or question for the?
protection, probably for all of you.
If you would pull that mic down. And
Are you
state your
saying
name.
I'm short? Susan
Remember,
Mack.
last person was tall.
Susan Mackin.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about fire protection. If you move forward with this rezoning and you put that many homes on that parcel of land, I called myself reading through the subdivision ordinance. That's not my area of expertise. I'll be the first one to admit it. It appeared to me that because you're going to have either individual wells or a community water system, that fire hydrants are not required, but we're going to be putting that many homes in there that are to be provided with fire protection. So I just would like an answer, since I'm not certain that I read that properly.
I think on any water system, hydrants are required. We're gonna be doing them every 500 feet because I believe that's what the requirement is for the other systems. We don't have a choice, but we'd obviously want to have fire protection there. City of Carabel has a volunteer fire department. Probably, they're not that far from them. I'm not sure exactly how many miles, what, 6 miles, Commissioner Massey? 6 miles
that.
away?
Probably
Under
about
five,
4 and a
yeah.
half.
That's even better. I thought it was actually a little bit farther away, but if we've got hydrants there, then it's a matter of, we'll have the water capacity to deal with fire.
All right. Any other public comment or questions? All right, Mr. Chairman, there being no other questions or public comment, this would be the applicant's opportunity to respond to the various individuals who have spoken under public comment. So if you have anything else to add, Mr. Garlick, now's your time.
Okay, I talked about smell. This system is going to be the current state of the art. I don't know what you can say about smell, other than that if you've got a really, really sensitive nose, you're going to pick up your own septic tank systems. I don't think this is going to be an issue. Access to 98, there are two, and they are shown on the drawing there. There's one, and it's one in existence. It's been there forever. Come on down to the west corner there.
You need to show, can you show them on there, Dan, because the board can't see that? No, the pointer.
No, I gotta figure out how to use this. There you go, okay. There's another access right here, and it's culverted, it's there, and it's shown on our proposed conceptual plat. So as far as access goes, it's not gonna be anything new. We obviously are still gonna be talking to DOT about issues for any new driveway cuts and stuff like that. I just don't think we're gonna need them. As stated again, we propose no mobile homes, no motor courts, anything like that. So it's all gonna be, just like, there you go. Procedural, there's nothing I can do about that. That's county staff. It got into the paper as well as being addressed to the neighbors. So I think that from a procedure aspect, we have done diligence. I think the county's done diligence on county staff. So I think we've hit that. The neighborhood, I know, it's one of those things you never can figure out just, what is good, what is bad when you have neighbors. But when you start talking about the not in my backyard issue, then I think you need to really consider what are the benefits to that. I think the biggest benefit here is that you're going to be looking at a removal of more hazardous problems from that V zone, moving it to the X zone for water and sewer, especially sewer. I think that is a big benefit. And again, if somebody wants to hook up to that system, there should be a surplus in the future for them to also alleviate a concern that they might have. Because as we know, we'd rather not have septic tanks close to the water. We'd rather have them back off the water. And in this X zone area here, we're not even going to have our own, but the neighbors do have septic tanks and aerobic units that, always are a problem if they fail. This one here will have a Class C operator, which is certified by the state of Florida. That will be the one that we actually operate in the plant, not the owner, but actually an operator that will be responsible for that. Also, for the well, there'll be, the Department of Health requires, I don't know what, it's a frequent inspection, I don't know how many, it's at least semi-annual, that they have to actually test the water, make sure the water's, potable and, safe from germs and disease and everything else they look at. As far as the dock issue, we're not even there yet. So, and I don't think the county's here yet, and we're not requesting anything to deal with the docks. Obviously, that would be something that would come up at a later time if the dock scenario is proposed in the water, just like any other water-dependent structure. And again, I guess the last thing is we can certainly consider, again, this is conceptual, but we certainly consider moving the wastewater system to the other side. But where it sits right now is not a bad place for it. But if that's something that becomes an issue, it sounds like it might be, then we can certainly look at shifting the wastewater system to the west and putting the water to the east. We just have to make sure that the neighbors are also okay with that. So we'll have to balance that out. So I think from a conceptual aspect, I think we've crossed our T's, dotted our I's. I think we got a good project here. And if you have any more questions, please call me. Please tell me right now. Don't call me.
Anybody got any questions for Mr. Garlick?
No, I was going to say, you're ready to proceed, Mr. Chairman, with whatever action the board is going to take.
Go ahead.
As far as procedural, whenever we're going through a public hearing, we always notify all of the adjacent property owners to the north, east, south, and west. If it touches this property, then they get a certified letter. We use the addresses that are on file at the property appraiser's website, and also it's in the newspaper twice, and it is online. The one thing is as far as agendas not being readable, we will work on making sure that these are readable. If they are extremely large files, they do come up as a blob. So what we'll do is we will put the bare minimum on there as far as the information, and if it's a larger file, I will make note in red at the bottom, there are additional items. Please contact me, myself, and I will make sure that each person that's asking about those get those documentation.
Correct a little bit. It depends, a different computer, certain devices are not able to process a large PDF file.
Yes.
So some will and some won't, so we can't determine in the office which ones will, so.
Yes.
If your point is to put a smaller one online and inform them there are more documents to
Yes.
contact you, that'll work.
Okay.
That's almost a guarantee that that even handheld devices can pull up the PDF file.
And Ms. Amy, did you receive any requests for additional information from anyone?
I have not. I've had people come and visit the office, but as far as additional information, no.
Okay, very good, thank you.
All right, it's back up here on decision time. Pledge of vote. Y'all want any discussion on vote?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask some questions if I can. Dan, ask some questions, please. You, I want to ask you some questions. First off, I want to ask, just so we can be clear, as the property currently sits, and Amy, you might can help us with this, what is zoned R2 and what's R1 currently?
Nothing's zoned R2, it's all zoned R1.
That's not what the application
That's not what the
says.
application
No.
says.
Anything north, it's about 200 feet up and onto the north property, there's an R2. I don't know where the line is, but there is a portion.
Do you know about close to where it's at?
Right in this neighborhood,
So the very northern part is currently R2?
yes.
Okay.
And
That's-
if it is rezoned to R1A, then mobile homes would not be allowed.
Right. But in R2, how many mobile homes are allowed per acre
1 unit per acre.
in R2?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, she's correct. I just, all along I've been working on this thing as R1, but Amy's correct.
It's okay. Another question, and I'm not trying to be unfair because I don't think it's really a discussion for today. How many lift stations, because I think you did say lift stations, how many lift stations are going to be required for this project?
We may end up having at least one per house. It just depends on the location where the house will be at the very end, because those on the top, which would be probably about half of them, probably be gravity fed.
Right.
But those that are on the south side of the road and probably those areas that are the larger lots will have to have lift stations. So I'd say 50-50 right now, probably have to have lift stations.
Okay, so you must be talking about a pretty small lift station.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they're like 1-inch lines and they're,
I know it's not really a discussion for today,
Sure.
but there's been other things discussed.
But we've looked at it. We're trying to figure out what the expense is going to be for these things.
Dan, Mr. Chairman, it's gonna be tough for me to vote for this rezoning when you have people to the east that don't want it. You got people to the north that don't want it. You got, as the lady stated, there where the fish hook is. And when these people bought their properties, they expected it to be 1 unit per acre. It's gonna be tough for me to vote for this when you got people all the way around the proposed rezoning that are against it. Having said that, I'm not really against the rezoning, but I am on behalf of these people because they're already there and they're already established, and the rezoning is coming to them. It ain't like we rezoned it and then people bought property around it. To me, that makes a difference, because if you know it's been rezoned and you know there's gonna be a lot of density there, but then you buy property next to it, then you should know that was happening. Currently, these people already have property around it, including the Hardys and the other young lady, and I forget his name, north of it. I'm sorry. But what are they supposed to do? If they don't want to live around this density, are they supposed to sell out and go look for another, how do you juggle all of that? I'm not sure, the one culvert going to the Hardy's property, can you address that? What is all the drainage off this property just gonna flow onto their property, or what's the deal with that? I mean, I don't
Yeah.
understand.
A good part will, because it's about a 3-acre wetland, and so there's nothing we can do. I mean, I'm not gonna go to DP, get a permit to fill it,
Okay.
because they wouldn't give me one.
So that's where all the drainage off this property is going into that wetland?
No. Part of it's going there. There's a divide where you're gonna see drainage going towards the west. I don't know exactly where it is. I've looked at the topo, but part of it's going west and part of it's going to the wetland. Obviously, the south side of the road, it goes directly to the bay.
Right.
So you're probably looking at maybe, let's just say half would go to the wetland, which has been that way all along. I mean, right now, there's paved
But it
roads
runs
out
through
there.
their property?
I'm not sure exactly where it runs on their property. It's definitely close, that there's, as you can, there actually may be on the border between that and the neighbors in there, but there's definitely a drainage line going down south of there into the bay.
And that would be the Hardy's property east of this development, right?
The trouble is, they actually got us, when the seawall was built way back when, the seawall was built all across their property. So I would say that the discharge, if it was not affected then, it's definitely discharging off the side. It's not going through their seawall. So as far as that goes, it'd be the person next to it that I'd be more concerned about what would happen there, because they've got the seawall on their property already.
We own that property next to the seawall
Sir,
and the north.
hold it a minute, sir.
So
Take
to
time
to
now.
answer your question, that we're not, the idea is we can't have a discharge off of our site that is any greater than what it was before. We have to deal with that before it gets to that point. We actually got to do it before we get to the critical habitat zone, which I said before is, we're not doing anything with wetland, we're not doing anything with the critical habitat zone. So the idea is that, what I'm looking at here, the benefit is that we've got 20 lots on that side of the road now. We're gonna have 30 when we're done. It's way below what we could have, which is a third of an acre. And so what we're looking at is actually we have this advantage now, and the county has this advantage, is to set a precedent to take houses that would be in A zone, in harm's way, and actually push them forward. And it's more of a density transfer. Yes, it is a little higher, but we're pushing it out of harm's way more, and so that is a benefit. As far as, when you got a 30-acre lot, and it's not a bad-sized lot, that's 5 times bigger than Apalachicola City lot. So, and with water and sewer, I look at that as a pretty good benefit, and I understand the neighbors thing and, all that stuff there, but still, I think that if you look at it from a rational and technical aspect, this is a substantial better way to do something versus having a bunch of houses on septic tanks, which could change in the future. At least with this one here, you know what's gonna happen. You don't know what might happen in the future.
I agree with all that, and I understand the advantages of the advanced wastewater treatment being there. I mean, I understand that, but what are these people, they didn't buy next to a subdivision. I mean, their options are very limited. If we rezone this property, they're stuck with it, and that's not what they bought.
Well, they are in a subdivision, it's just that the lots are bigger and they choose to have it that way. That's all there is to it, but they're all in a subdivision.
Okay. Do you mind if I added a couple of points to address some things that were said?
Go ahead.
Where's the pointer?
Need 2 or 3 of them.
The lady was correct. That property right there does not belong to us. That's Chuck Thomas. He has 2 half-acre tracts there, and he's the first fellow I contacted. He said he would like to tie into the system. Otherwise, he'd have to put in septic tanks and wells ×2 right there. These 2 lots here don't belong to us either. They belong to Cherie Wood, who lives right there. As soon as we bought the subdivision, she asked if she could have those 2 acres because she's wanted them since she was in high school. So we sold those 2 acres to Cherie. She's right here. She agrees with the rezoning. She could build as many as 5 houses there after the rezoning if she wanted to. She doesn't want to. But she doesn't mind having that. Right here is the wastewater treatment. And we picked the most remote spot we could. You know, if we put it over here, that would have been a bigger problem. Now here, this is a little over an acre for the drain field, and right here is gonna be a house. I'd like to live in that house. It's a big 3-acre plot. If I build it last, I'm gonna live there. And if that smell's gonna be a problem, it's gonna be a problem for me. It's not gonna be a problem. Good job.
You know, I'm like this. It's coming. Change coming. I mean, people don't buy it. It's not buying these lots for people to look at. A lot is a lot, but they buying these lots. They paying taxes on them every year, and sooner or later they gonna try to develop. That's what people do. I mean, it's coming, the future. I mean, the past is behind us.
Can I ask Miss Amy something? Them lots up top, you put trailers on them now, can't you?
Yeah. That's correct.
If somebody want to put a mobile home in there right now, or a camper, they can put it in there.
Not
I mean,
camper, but
the little trailers, manufactured trailers.
I think all 9 acres up there that way, aren't they, Amy?
I don't have a survey that shows the separation of the zoning.
I'm pretty sure that when they rezoned those 9 or 10 lots into shell-based subdivision, that they went with R2 at that point.
I mean, you can create a subdivision with 2 different zonings and everything, 1 unit acres, and everything, but as far as the separation line of where R2 begins and R1 begins, I don't have that clear
Okay.
separation of how many acres are in R2.
I'm just going by
and-
memory, and mine's not that good.
Yes, sir.
All righty,
I have a question for that fella there.
Yeah.
come on. Which one?
Listen here.
Come on.
One last question, I'm sorry. Charles Carruthers. I've lived in Woodall for 18 years now, and we're subject to power outages, considerable power outages. What happens to their septic system when the power goes out? Where does it go then? And also, I had one more concern. Both of their exits are on Highway 98. I've had to go through the woods several times to get out of my house when 98's tore up, and it does get tore up. So how are those people going to get out of there?
Ricky Giles. I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Did you know them lots up there, you could put trailers on them, or
I don't know what lot you're referring to, sir.
the top ones on top right here, you know, they're zoned for trailers right now?
No, I did not know that.
Yes, sir, they zoned, Amy said they're zoned for trailers right now. People could put trailers on them now if they wanted.
Well, they have to get back in there first, because it's a mess getting back in there.
Well,
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
they'd try to build a road.
Mr. Chairman,
Good.
I've conferred with the developers consultants and conferred with county staff, with Ms. Amy Kelly. 3 of those units apparently we don't have rezone applications from those 3 unit owners. We do have a rezone application from this developer, but he can't request that you rezone property that he does not own. So we have 2 options moving forward. We can cut out those 3 units that have not applied to the county for the rezoning, or we could, and I'm recommending to you that we table this rezoning public hearing, consult with those property owners, have staff, not me, but have the staff consult with those property owners and have them send something to the county in writing that they do or do not want their property rezoned. Because right now, you are not in a position that you can take action on those 3 lots. Now, I need the pointer.
Amy has it, I think.
Would you just point those 2 there owned by Sherry Wood, and then that one
That one in the lower is already half acre, 2 half-acre lots, grandfathered in.
Understood.
So he doesn't need to be rezoned. And if we could cut Cherie out, we can cut her out.
Okay, cut them out.
Okay. All right, then let's cut them out. We just can't rezone someone's property without their consent, but we can cut out those 3 units and move forward with the application as it's been advertised then. Okay.
All
We're
right.
we're in a procedural position to move with that clarification.
Pleasure to vote.
Just take 5, let me think. Yeah, let me think about it.
Yeah. Why don't we
Let's
table
think
it?
about it. We'll take 5, let's think about it.
Okay.